Everyone. As promised, today is Monday's check-in, and the purpose of these is for me to make live the reading for the week, and also to give you some uh, lecture-like information just to make sure that everybody is kind of on the same page. Because as I've said before, for some of you, this is going to only be the the extent of our interaction for the rest of the semester. So let me get into it right away. So a couple of concepts that are really important for us to know and that are going to be informing the reading that we're doing this week are ideology, ideological criticism, and social construction. So, what exactly is ideology? The way that I like to define ideology is that it's this set of belief systems or assumptions that precede you. Okay, so before you're born, there is this whole set of expectations, ideas about, let's say, gender, about nation, about religion, or whatever that um, it already exists. Okay, and there often is a dominant ideology. There are often multiple ideologies of the same kind of thing, but there's the one that's supersedes all the other ones and are considered part of mainstream culture. Okay, and the job, right, of mainstream culture, right, is to socialize these little blob people, these little kids, toddlers, infants, babies, right, to get to the point where they internalize, right, these ideologies of gender, of race, of nation, etc. And when and not all ideologies have to be dominant or predicated on like this um, uh, power struggle, right? But they often are. So, which we'll see this idea of the of ideological wars, fighting over who has the dominant ideology and who doesn't, right? So, particularly in this moment over gender and sexuality, trans rights, access to rooms, et cetera, et cetera. These are kinds of things uh, constitute ideological wars. Um, Another term that I just wanted to also bring up, social construction. So, because all of these ideas we are not born with, okay, we are socialized into, such as the dominant ideology of gender of our Western culture. That means that all of these ideas are social constructions. They are not real, okay, in the philosophical sense. They are ideas, okay? And so there is no such thing as gender. There's no such thing as nation, right? We create these concepts that we then socialize ourselves into, okay? So there's now one of the things that I want us to be talking about as an example of these kinds of ideological wars will be through the example of the Unite the Right rally that took place on August 11th to the 12th in 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia, by UVA, University of Virginia. I don't know how many of you remember this, how old you were, but I remember it very distinctly. It was incredibly scary, and we're still continuing to feel the shock waves of what happened. Um, so what we're basically going to be talking about is what happened at the rally. You're going to be watching the documentary, and in the reading we're talking about how when we do rhetorical analysis, when we do ideological criticism, we're doing it on artifacts. So it doesn't have to be on a speech necessarily or a written text necessarily. It can be on an artifact, right? So an example here, an artifact would be the Unite the Right rally, okay? And so we're going to be thinking about how ideology and ideological wars kind of are emerging out of that and the rhetoric of that. Okay. And so I also, in addition, assigned that newspaper clipping from Durham where they pulled down the Confederate statue in front of the courthouse. This was in response to the Unite the Right rally. Okay, so rhetorically, what is going on with that? Right, pulling down a statue. That how does one analyze that? You can analyze that, right? Okay, the moment the that is an example of an artifact. Another thing that I am signing is about Denmark Vesey and the history of the slave revolt in Charleston at Mother Emanuel Church. And that is the same church that Dylan Roof chose to um, massacre um, the uh, to massacre at the Bible at Bible studies um, of that Sunday. So um, we're going to talk about also like that as an artifact. Okay, rhetorically, why did this kid choose this particular church in Charleston? Why did he drive out from Columbia, South Carolina, to Charleston in order to do this, right? Um, and it wasn't just an accident. Okay, so we're going to talk about rhetorically what this kid was doing, knowing the history of Denmark Vesey, knowing the history that in that same place where Bible study took place. Well, that was the place where Denmark Vesey and tried to organize a slave revolt in the um, early 19th century. So these are all different kinds of things we're going to be talking about and doing rhetorical analysis of these events, you know, symbolism, right? You know, and how these different figures, both good and bad, right? Or many of them bad in this case of what we're doing this week, utilize, right, history, place, and all these kinds of things in order to promote their own ideological position. And so that's where this ties in with rhetoric. And so what you'll be doing this week, most importantly, primarily, is watching the Unite the Right Vice documentary, and then reading those pieces on those articles, very short articles that I've included on the historical moments, and then probably just reviewing the Gallagher will be helpful because it's just related, you know, precisely to the kinds of conversations that we're going to be talking about. So I know it was a little long, but yeah, so that's basically what we're going to be doing. If you have any questions, comments, again, feel free to email me. Thanks very much. Looking forward to talking to you all on Thursday. Bye bye.